Recorded live on the turf at Mad Lab Training Studio in Eldersburg, Maryland. This is the Time to Win podcast with Alex and Dan. Now let's get this podcast started.
Dan, the Zen masters say a lot of stuff, right? One of the things they say...
Do they say the same things as the booze masters?
The booze masters?
Mm-hmm.
I doubt it.
Yeah.
I have not read extensively of the booze masters, okay? But the Zen masters say things like, you know, the reason you suffer is because there's a gap between what you want and what you got, right? And that is the source of all suffering.
So then, isn't one of the big things that they also say is that you should spend less time wanting? Like, you try to figure out how to want less is like the big...
Right.
Which is where like a lot of the minimalist movement comes from.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think so. I think I've read that.
Yeah, that's actually the point, right? Like, if you want nothing and you have nothing, you're not disappointed.
Then you had a good baseline.
I know, right? So, you know, they also say that to have a body is to suffer. And that, you know, like physical pain, like I'm hungry, I'm wet, I'm cold, I'm tired, you know, owie, I scraped my knee, I spent too much time in Mad Lab, I don't know, right? But they say things like that, you know, and so.
But don't other people say, I want it all and I want it now?
Some people, yes, some people say that, but you know what? I reckon they suffer.
They probably do suffer.
They're sad because they want everything, and no matter what they get, they'll never get everything.
But what's the way to be, though? So, and when I say that, so I say that in like an all-encompassing thing, right?
Yeah.
If you're looking at it in a vacuum, then you would say, okay, well, to be happier and not suffer as much, then I should want for less and have less. However, if you're looking at the overall, remember when we talked about the overall goal of society? Well, then you start to lose a lot of your ambition and your like exploration and your expansionist mindset, which I think is in our genetic code. So then, are you just living while doing that thing that seems noble? Are you just living now for yourself, or are you supposed to be furthering society? See what I'm saying?
I think I do, Dan. Have you thought of an answer?
I just thought of this just now. So just like a lot of things that you bring to my brain, it starts to like open up little pathways that I didn't even know were there.
Right.
I would say, I hate to be kind of shitty and take kind of a middle road, but I feel like you almost have to...
the Buddha wants you to take the middle road.
I know,
Dan.
but that does seem to be
Make me one with everything, okay?
I would say that, you know, just like anything else, if you err too far on one side or another, that you're going to end up in some kind of trouble. But then maybe, again, if you look more all-encompassing, like if you're just looking at the individual, you know, maybe you do want to walk the middle road. But I think you need some individuals that are outside of the bell curve, right? You need some outliers. You need some that are way over there, very ambitious, very expansionist, right? And you need some others to balance that out and to be like, no, we're just going to chill out. We're going to want for nothing. We're going to need nothing. We're going to have nothing, and we're going to be happy, right? So I think maybe you need those things.
I think you need the outliers. I agree. But the whole reason I brought this up is that, you know, I walked in and you said, how are you feeling today? And I said, man, I'm sore.
You did.
And I'm sore because I want something that I don't have.
You want to not be sore?
No. I don't care about being sore.
Oh, you want to be able to
I want to
rip through the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
Look back and say,
you know, I thought it was bigger.
That's the goal.
I thought it was going to be bigger. Like, is that it? You know, that's So
that's literally what he told me, Mike. Actually.
So I think we came up with that together, Dan. With all due respect.
Well, I do appreciate you including me in there, but I do think that was like an Alexism right there.
Well, maybe so. I don't know. It doesn't matter though, because you know.
Because it's going to happen regardless.
Well, what, that I'm going to suffer?
Well, yes, that you are going to suffer, but then also you're going to turn around and say that with a bunch of people there, and they're going to be like, "Who is this guy?"
Yeah, you know, I love the idea of being a badass, and I stopped wanting to be a badass a long time ago. I think organically it happens sometimes. I just happen to be a badass once in a while. Like, when I'm pushing the sled at the Mad Lab or something like that. But I gave up on being a badass a long time ago because there are other people out there that are far badder than I am, even in my own cohort. There are guys that start their watch on the south rim of the Grand Canyon, and they run continuously to the north rim. And when they're done, that's 25 miles.
Oh, I was going to say.
And
how far is it?
When they're done, they turn around and come back without even stopping.
So they like ultra it.
Yeah, they go out and back, rim to rim to rim, in one shot. And that's crazy to me. I mean, it's not crazy. I think it's cool as hell.
Do you think you could like naturally get to a space where like that's parts of that are fairly easy?
No.
You know what I'm saying? Like, because
I do know what you're saying, but I think the answer is no. I don't think you get to a place where something that hard is easy. I think it's always going to be hard. I think that's like even if you're
what makes you do that then?
I don't know.
Because that's a long way. That's a lot of time too, right?
Yeah.
So you're like, if you're going to do that,
let's call it 50 miles. Let's say that's a 16-hour, 18-hour day, right? Continuous jogging, running, walking, whatever. But it's a very, very long day. And you don't just naturally get to that state, right? You don't you have to put a lot of suffering into it. And I think even if you know what you're getting yourself into, you're going to have moments where like you're going to fall, or you're going to be startled, or you're going to be bored, or you're going to be cold or wet or hungry or tired, sore, on.
Well, then the only thing to me that would make somebody do that was this: if they had a lot of mental strife and anguish going on, right? Mm-hmm. So then I think, then that makes me go to another step and go, is some mental strife and anguish, I mean, let's call it just adversity, right? Obviously, some adversity is important, but is like some major adversity important to everybody, even at a young life? Because then you're like, you try to avoid that. But then, see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't think, okay, right, so we had this conversation yesterday, right, about the motivational posters, right, and there's all the guys rowing together, and it says, like, teamwork makes the dream work, or something like that.
Right.
But then there's the anti-motivational posters, like the guy getting punched in the face.
Spit flying everywhere.
And the slogan is, not all pain is gain, right? Okay, write that one down, kids. Not all pain is gain.
But you could argue that everybody should be punched in the face at least once in their life. And then you learn a lot from getting punched in the face.
Yeah, but okay, that's fine. But getting punched in the face once is instructional. Getting punched in the face hundreds of times is no longer instructional. That's just dumb. Right?
It's a very good argument for that, for sure. Okay, all right, I get that.
But that's actually not what I wanted to talk about today.
Like, you don't want to talk about getting punched in the face? I can talk all day about getting punched in the face. I've been hit many a time.
I have too.
I believe that.
And the first couple of times I learned an important lesson. This sucks, right? Okay, and we are going to avoid getting punched in the face if we can, right? We know what happens if you get punched in the face. It hurts. It won't kill you, but it hurts, right? And I don't need any more hurt. I already have all the hurt I need, right?
Fair enough.
I come to Mad Lab and I push the sled, and like my nutrition coach has me on an intermittent fasting program right now. I'm hungry as sin all day long. I'm in a bad mood. I'm losing weight. That's really cool.
That is cool.
But yeah, it's unpleasant, right? And so you learn lessons from unpleasantness. Like, hey,
True.
Alex, if you weren't such a slob and you spent all your evenings snacking on salty, crunchy stuff, if you didn't do that, Alex, you wouldn't have to like fast to lose weight, right? You could just like have a more balanced lifestyle. Right? I'm trying to learn.
For sure.
I'm trying so hard to learn these lessons.
I think you do a great job. But so that brings me to a question. Alex.
Dan?
What did you come here to talk about today?
Okay. So, Dan, have you ever felt at times like your life is like one long continuous Dungeons and Dragons campaign?
Actually, sort of, yes. Because, so this is very interesting to me because, well, one, because I love Dungeons and Dragons and video games and also like board games and all sorts of stuff, right? But it's kind of funny that we, like, especially some of these, I mean, not even newer games, like all games that have experience points, right? And skills and stuff like that. Well, what do you have to do in a lot of these cases to get better at stuff? Like you have to go out and do stuff and get experience doing whatever it is so that you can get better. And some people are willing to grind on games for hours and hours and hours, days and days and days, where if you look at it, you could be like, I could just play like a real character. And this is not me against video games. I love video games, but like anything can be done in excess. But yeah, I could just like, if I spend that time on myself getting better, I might have more fun in my actual life.
Yeah.
Right? Because I could be better at, you could pick a skill. Even if you're not naturally good at it, you're going to get better at it by just putting hours in. Never played guitar before? I don't know. Play 3 hours a day just like you did the video game, and all of a sudden, you're going to be way better than you were before, right? Light years better. Yeah, and you could be. So I think about that. So I think about that in like that vein all the time because there's so many parallels with that. You're just like, that is just kind of like, if you practice this, you will get better at it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I believe in that 100%.
what brings you, what makes you ask that question?
Well, okay, so
that's interesting.
So here in my hand, I have an artifact from a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. This is the notebook of all knowledge.
Of
okay?
all knowledge.
Right, it's not the clipboard of doom. This is the arcane artifact, the notebook of all knowledge. And I
You're
opened
gonna have
it.
some treasure hunters come a knocking.
Yeah, they have been, right? But we try and keep its location secret. Now,
Yeah.
of course, now with the podcast,
Plus, we have Iggy the Guardian over here.
yeah, look at that, man! Wow, I didn't even notice that. That's great. Somebody got a new dog.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's why I'm thinking about this. I haven't played Dungeons and Dragons really since like maybe 1979.
A lot of changes in that game. A lot of updates.
Yeah, but the bones are still the same.
Bones are
right?
still the same.
Okay, and so I was playing a campaign with my pal Dr. Paul. So this is 45.
I love Dr. Paul.
Yeah, I know.
I got to meet him this past weekend.
That's right.
Shout out to Dr. Paul.
So Dr. Paul and I were in a campaign, and I was the dungeon master, okay, and we created some characters, and Paul was playing a hobbit thief called Hobo Hardfoot. And I was like, how do you come up with a name like Hobo Hardfoot?
That seems like something he would come up with after
Totally.
talking to him for a while. Yeah,
Totally.
yeah.
He named his character Hobo Hardfoot.
That's an excellent name.
And after I stopped laughing, which was like 10 minutes later,
I'm sure.
hysterical laughter, I never forgot that, though. I was so impressed with his creative impulse.
That's the name of the podcast, Hobo Hardfoot.
The home of Hobo Hardfoot.
That's it.
Hobo Hardfoot's house, right?
I love it.
And then I turned to my other friend and I said, and what is your character? And he said, I am an elf, and I am an elf merchant, and my name is Dorian Bookbinder. And I was like, oh my God. Like, where does that come from? How do you create names like that? Like, I was stunned. And, hilarity ensued, another 10 minutes of laughter. And finally, my last pal said he was going to play a monk. He was going to play like a monk cleric, kind of like passive warrior. I don't know what that means even. But he was going to play a monk character, and his name was Avalokiteshvara. Right? And I was again, like I'm floored by the intelligence and the creativity of this friend group that I have, and I still am, because they're all amazing people.
Sure.
But here's Avalokiteshvara. Okay. So we play our campaign lives and dies, and 45 years elapse. And I get a text message from Dr. Paul this morning, okay?
This morning?
This morning.
Okay.
And I will read you the text that Dr. Paul sent me. I found Avalokiteshvara. Okay? And, our listeners can't see this, but Dan, you can. Avalokiteshvara. And
Avalokiteshvara.
yeah. And Avalokiteshvara, a biography of Avalokiteshvara. So apparently my friend
Based it on a real
Hindu, like Buddhist, I guess a Buddhist character from history.
That's awesome.
Now, how my 17-year-old friend knew about Avalokiteshvara in 1979, I have no idea. But here's the bio. Let's see here. A bodhisattva, a being who's on a path to becoming a Buddha, yet vows first to liberate all creatures in the universe from suffering before achieving his or her own enlightenment.
Well, that's a whole nother thing too.
Wow.
Then, if so,
Okay, and that's why I asked you. Like, is life? And here it is. Life, life has turned into a D&D campaign for me.
all right. So look at this, right? So you're in your genetic code, right? There's ambition. There's you want to explore. You want to expand, right? Human beings naturally want to do those things.
So you say.
But so I say. So maybe not. But it seems like that, right? Just from based on years and years of history and human technology and just like the change of all that stuff. And also where we started in the world and where we are now, which is almost everywhere, right? And we might even try to figure out ways to get under the sea or go to other planets and stuff like that. So then do you get enlightenment, and then when you figure these things out and stop wanting, and then do you move on? Because do they say you turn into like something else, right?
I don't know. There's some religions that say that, yeah. Like I think the Hindus have that cycle, samsara they call it.
So I was listening to a podcast and I did some reading afterwards. Actually I think when we were going down to Deep Creek or we were coming back or something like that. So right around that same time frame. Because I was like, oh, I should talk to Alex about some of this stuff. But it was about like other civilizations, as in like other beings, and the potential for that. And so it kept going back to like Sumerians and like the stone tablets that they wrote on and they drew on and stuff like that, like cuneiform. And then it also went big time into the Egyptians, because that seemed like at the time, in a small amount of time, the height of technology for no reason that anybody could figure out.
Yeah, right. We created a written alphabet.
Right. And and then in just looking at the Great Pyramids and like where they're located and like how all of that stuff worked. But the argument there was because of what was written on the tablets, and then also the structure of the Great Pyramids and some of the other things that were happening in Egypt at the time, and then the change in technology from the Egyptians to civilizations afterwards, like how things just kind of fell off of a cliff. Their argument was that there were other beings that were either supposed to give us like more information on technology or share technology with us, and then go somewhere, like they either were visiting or they like transcended and like moved somewhere else. Just like we're looking at trying to have life on the moon or have life on Mars and stuff like that. So I just thought it was really interesting that they had like, one of the theories was you're human and then you like evolve into like a different form and then like move off. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I have no idea, but it's just interesting to think about.
So I don't know what happens when you become enlightened. Right. I don't know. Like I haven't studied any of that stuff.
We're obviously not enlightened because we suffer every day. And we try to.
So maybe we are enlightened and that's just like what it means to be enlightened. I don't know. I don't know. Like,
not according to that definition.
If you were enlightened, would you even know it?
I have no idea.
But okay, so let me rewind. Avalokiteshvara.
Yeah.
Right? Like, okay, that stunned me. First of all, for the creativity of my young friends.
That is very
in 1979.
Yes, for sure.
Did like Hobo Hardfoot, Dorian Bookbinder? I mean,
Hobo Hardfoot sounds like a name that I would have come up with.
Yeah,
that's why
I would never would have come up with that. I just don't have that creative thing. I don't know where it comes from, but some people got it, and other people, they have flashes of it, right? Like, sometimes I'm creative, right? And I'll have a weird flash, and suddenly something makes sense, or I make a connection, or I learn something, but I was amazed, first of all, by the creativity, right? And then I was amazed that there was that knowledge there, Avalokiteshvara. Like, what? And then it turned out to be real. So now in three times now this morning, I've been floored by this realization, right? And here's this character, Avalokiteshvara, which incubated for 45 years in the mind of both myself and Dr. Paul, only to be realized and manifested this morning when he was walking through some museum. And he's like, boom, there it is. I remember that. I'm going to finish the connection. I'm going to tell Alex.
That's hilarious.
And here's Avalokiteshvara.
But what makes your life feel like a Dungeons and Dragons campaign?
Just like that, like you're on this mission, right? And you're on this quest, and you have colleagues, and you develop skills and experience, and you accrue weapons, like the Notebook of All Knowledge and things like that, or the Sled of Ogre Power. I don't know, right? But it's
I like that one.
Yeah. So it's just amazing to me that like these things, it just pops up out of nowhere. And there it is. Somebody has been thinking about this for 45 years until they got the cue, and they received the message. They received it clear and uncorrupted, and then they transmitted the message back to me. Like, whoa, that's just stunning.
So if it was like a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, then would the overall goal of life just to amass as much power as possible?
I don't think so. No.
Well, if it was like that, isn't that the goal the ultimate goal of D&D is you're constantly trying to become more powerful so that you can overcome more stuff.
Well,
like each character might have like a thing that they gravitate towards, like wealth or
yeah.
Like
okay. So the story arc of Dungeons and Dragons is definitely that, right? Like become powerful. But the story arc from that little note card on Avalokiteshvara in the museum, the story arc of that character was, I could chase enlightenment now for myself, but before I become enlightened, I want to make sure that I eliminate suffering in everybody else.
That's why he's questing.
Yeah, he's on a different quest. It's not to become powerful, but at least to accrue the capability,
the power to be able to do that for everybody else.
Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Once again,
like I wouldn't say power. I mean, it's an easy word to use, but
it is.
I like the word capability, right?
Okay.
Right. Like, and you rarely encounter campaigns in Dungeons and Dragons that are about helping people. Right? I mean, there are story arcs like let's become really capable at our craft so that we can go help people.
But that is kind of that is the nice thing about those games is like you can really play it however you want. And even in a good campaign, there should be multiple ways that you can get to the end goal. Right? Some of them could be mostly nonviolent. Some of them could be extremely violent. Right? So like you can go a bunch of different ways with it.
Yeah, unfortunately my aperture is small and my camera is pointed in the wrong direction. I played an extremely powerful, chaotic, evil character whose only goal was to kill as many people as possible.
Lord.
Yeah.
That's one way to do it.
And we did. Yeah.
And we did. Wait, so were you but that was not when you were DMing.
No.
I was going to say cuz that would be a tough character to have in with that other character. How do you say that again? The character
Avalokiteshvara.
Avalokiteshvara and that character would not seamlessly.
They would attack each other on sight.
Something would happen, for sure.
When an unstoppable force meets an immovable object, the only thing that happens is total annihilation.
Total annihilation.
But anyway, so that's why I was saying, like, maybe life is like a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, right? Like, you're struggling to survive, and then you're struggling to, build your capabilities, and then, like, and it goes on and on and on. And
do you think that is also why we try to amass material stuff?
I don't know.
Because that seems to be ingrained in a lot of people. Do you think that's like a mistake, where like you're actually trying to do something else, but instead you get material stuff, or do you think that's like a normal thing for human beings to do?
I don't know. I think it's pathological. I don't think it's normal.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I don't think it's normal either, and I think people that collect material stuff, and not like I'm collecting stamps or Pokemon cards. Like you're collecting just like items. You're starting to get. Well, you want more cars. You want bigger rooms. You want more boats, you want bigger yard, you want bigger everything all the time. And I think that to me means that you are missing out on something. Maybe, but I'd have to explore that more.
Yeah, I think it's a pathology, right?
I think that's a good way to say it.
And like, like maybe the test is to say, what do either end of that spectrum look like? Like the middle probably looks like, you need to have, enough stuff that you can, like, you need a couple pairs of clothes, you need a toothbrush, you need a car, generally speaking, right?
For sure.
You need some basic stuff, right? But, do you need 2 cars? I don't know. Most families do. But, that's kind of the middle slice, right?
Yeah.
You have what you need, right? So that, you're not wanting all the time. And at another end of the spectrum is like, religious monastics, like they've got nothing, right? They live in a community that provides everything for them, but they don't own the clothes on their back. They have no possessions of their own. I don't know. Maybe there's a slant on that.
They do that, but then they probably, while they don't have anything material, they probably constantly accrue skills or a couple skills they heighten all the time.
Right.
And I think that
maybe like okay, let me finish this thought because I will drop it in a second. But at the other end, you've got hoarders, right?
Yeah.
Right, and you don't need 600 pairs of pillowcases for your house, right?
But you might need 600. You might think you do.
You might think
if
you
you
do.
have some giant insecurities somewhere.
Right,
Maybe
right.
you don't feel like you have. You've never really had a safe space before, like
That's
at
right,
home or
that's
something
right.
like that.
I mean, some people, some people find comfort in that. I don't know. It's like a fortress for them. They can hide amidst their stuff and never be seen. I don't know.
But if you have a hoarder that makes $40,000 a year, that could be way different than a hoarder that makes $2 million a year, right? Because that $2 million a year could have a much non-hoarder like looking space where it's like you wouldn't look at their stuff and say they're a hoarder, but then you think about all the stuff that they have and constantly try to accrue. Yeah. And then you're like, but you are a hoarder. Yeah. You just have more money to make it look cleaner and more.
Right. So
I'm just spitballing here.
Yeah, you're on the mark. Okay, so I've got a $5,000 Rolex in a drawer at home, right? It's still 11 o'clock in the morning. Right?
Still 11 o'clock.
Wait, now I decided that I want a better Rolex. I want the one. I'm going to keep my first one, but now I've got the nice one. I've got the Daytona, right? Okay. That's like a $25,000 watch. Damn. Right. It's still 11 o'clock in the morning. Wait a minute. Let's go over the top. Let's get the solid gold base on that thing, and let's encrust the face with diamonds.
Will that stop time?
It's still 11 o'clock.
Damn.
But I dropped $250,000 on a watch.
That is a great analogy, though.
It's still 11 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
Now, a Rolex is a nice piece of jewelry, but I don't need 3 or 4 of them. In fact, I never bought one. I actually inherited one. So,
oh wow!
And I never put it on because I don't care what time it is.
Yeah, and we have phones that do that and stuff.
I know, right?
I don't wear a watch because one time I was in, I think, 4th grade, and for my first communion, I got a watch that went underwater.
Nice.
And it was this blue watch, like a kid watch. Yeah. And I was very excited about it. And I'd never worn a watch before. So I wore this watch to school. And on one of the first days I was wearing the watch, you know how like in elementary school you have to walk everywhere in a freaking line all the time. So I'm walking in the line and we're walking slow and we're by a wall. So I do the normal thing that I would do and just like lean against the wall and slide against the wall while walking. And then I looked at my watch at one point to look at the time, and I had scratched the face completely up. And I was so disappointed because then the watch was ruined. Yes. And I was like, I should never wear a watch again. And I have never worn a watch since that day because of what 4th grade Dan said.
Wow, that's trauma.
For whatever that does for anybody.
That's trauma, right?
That's trauma, I'm telling you.
So
no watch right now.
Unfortunately, I can't, I don't know how to tie that back to life as a D&D campaign. Except that maybe you became enlightened in 4th grade.
I think I gained some experience.
Yes,
and I
did.
chose a path.
Yeah,
you know,
not all pain is gain, but sometimes it is.
Sometimes it is.
Some pain is gain, right?
Might have been how I chose a certain class.
And speaking of time,
what time is it, producer Mike?
I know what time it is.
Is it time to win?
Time to win, baby.
we've been winning for 30 minutes.
Well, son of a beast.
Well, I'd like to give a shout out to the professionals at Mad Lab Performance.
Oh,
Those guys,
Thank you.
I've never had a bad day at Mad Lab. I go in there and sometimes, I wrote a review once online. It said something like, "Are you nervous? Well, they'll be gentle. Okay. Are you hard? They will go as hard for as long as you can or want to go, right? And some days I come in here and I'm soft and, I get treated with respect and compassion. Some days I come in here hard and I get treated with derision, right? And they're like, you're hard, huh? Okay, here, we're going to push this sled through the mud, 700 pounds, I don't know. And, systematically, the people at Mad Lab always find a way to identify what it is that I need and how to get it, right?
Oh, thanks,
not what I
Alex.
want, but what I need, right? And that's a good feeling. We had a podcast episode where we talked about like surrounding yourself with coaches and like people that can help you achieve your goals, right? And Mad Lab is part of that foundation, part of that group that I've put around myself. So I want to give a shout out to the people at Mad Lab. And on that, Dan, who do you want to acknowledge?
Well, I always want to shout out my friends at CNA Auto. Anything you got going on with your car, truck, van, whatever it is, you got to take it over there. Our friend Adam owns it. He's excellent. The people working for him are excellent. He's on a much-needed vacation right now. Also, CNA Auto is looking for mechanics. So if you guys know anybody that's really interested in that, or maybe they're not happy where they are now, it's a great place to work. Adam's an awesome boss, really cool guy. Everybody over there is nice as possible. So please see my friends over at CNA Auto. And if you're looking for work, they are looking for mechanics.
Man, that's a pro tip. Wow, thanks.
That's it. Yeah.
So there we were. We were talking about Avalokiteshvara. We were talking about D&D. We were talking about Zen practices and philosophies a little bit. I mean, is there anything this podcast has not turned over? Are there any stones in the creek that we need to flip over?
Oh, I'm sure there's still plenty.
Like what? Like Dan,
You look at stones in the creek.
When you were a kid, did you have a creek first of all? Did you have a place in the woods that you could go?
Yeah, we
play in?
did. Yeah, we did have a place in the back.
Yeah, and did you have a stream or?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
A little bit of a stream. It wasn't big.
Yeah.
At various friends' houses, there was some bigger ones, and that was always very exciting.
Yeah. And what would you do when you go down to the stream?
Well, one of the big things that we would do is try to stop the water.
Always.
Yeah.
It's
It's just like F this water, just like a beaver.
Yeah,
says
man.
we won't have no running water.
We cannot stand the sound of
Can't
running
do that.
water.
Yeah.
Right? Drives us crazy. So I was talking to Dr. Paul about this. And, we ought to try and figure out how to get him on the podcast. 'Cause
Oh, he would be great.
He would slot
be great.
right into
For
the
sure.
vibe, right?
Yeah.
And he'd have good stuff to contribute. But we're talking about, growing up and stuff and going down to the stream in the woods. And it was the same thing. He and I did not grow up as little kids. Like, I didn't meet him till I was like 13 or 14, right?
Okay.
But he was telling the same story. He's like, oh, yeah, we'd go down there and we'd play in Stony Run and we'd like pile rocks in there. And a couple of times we got pretty good dam going, And
Yeah, so that is like a natural, that's interesting.
Totally. And I did the same thing. Yeah.
Why? Because that is a very specific thing to go do.
Because we're beavers?
Beavers have evolved from humans.
Or something.
We evolve into beavers, not the opposite.
You were asking earlier, like, where are we going? Like, what do we turn into?
Beaverdom.
We turn into beavers, okay? Intergalactic space beavers.
I love it.
Right?
I love it. Yeah, I don't know. That is interesting. I mean, as I hate to be like, you see something as a kid, as an adolescent, and you're just like, time to destroy it, or like time to change it.
I know.
Like, we can't just have this happen.
Right, like you see. Okay, so when I got a little bit older and I went to college, you have your friends and you discover maybe it's fun to like drink a little alcohol sometimes, and we would go hiking, and whenever somebody would see a tree that was dead and about to fall over, they would run up to it and try and knock it over.
Yeah, I do that too, as an adult.
I do too.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't get it. What's our pathology? But you're right. And
That is interesting.
I wonder, yet here we are. On the other hand, here we are as humans, capable of generating the most sublime, far-reaching art. Like go paint the Mona Lisa, go design the dome of St. Paul's, go cure cancer. I don't know. I mean, we're wildly creative, but we're wildly destructive at the same time.
Wildly destructive.
And
that seems like built into our code.
Yeah,
too.
that's super weird, man. Maybe enlightenment is when you lose the impulse to create and destroy, and you're happy just being. I don't know.
Well, then it would also be like, why? See, that goes back to like, what is our purpose?
I don't know.
Is it just survival of the species? Because some of those things would be innately put in there. Because the more you expand and the more you just are able to destroy, unless you end up destroying yourself, then you should get better and better at those things and be able to defend yourself from whatever.
Yeah, I mean, we don't like the historical record is not very favorable, is it? It doesn't paint a great picture.
It doesn't paint a great picture as far as the results are astounding because there's way more human beings now than there were before.
Yeah, but growth and survival aren't the same thing.
Well,
right?
I don't like to think of us like that. So I'm just saying if you did think of it like that, so I do agree with you. It's not a pretty picture of what I just described.
Yeah.
However, if that was the goal, then we are very good at it.
Yeah. Well, we've thrived and survived, but like our long-term survival, like when you look at like the way we just like consume resources and the way we build and the way we kill each other, I mean, it doesn't seem like we're really thoughtful about survival of the species. It seems almost like dumb luck sometimes.
But some of us are.
Yeah, some of us are. That's a good thing.
But see, that's what I'm saying. Maybe that's like that bell curve.
Yeah. I mean,
because you wouldn't take many people to be super destructive to convince other people to do the same thing that aren't as much. And we've seen that throughout history.
Yeah, maybe.
But I don't know if that means that so many of us are like that.
Maybe I'm being skeptical because I'm not satisfied with where we are. That's probably what it is.
Which also is an innate human trait as well, because we're not very easy to stay satisfied.
Well, that's me, Mr. Human. Hey, Dan. I mean, I've been called a lot of things, but no one's ever called me a human before.
Well, I wouldn't say that you're your average run-of-the-mill human in any way.
I'm just some guy. I mean, I thought we cleared that up on every other podcast.
No.
It's funny the way we close these episodes. It's almost like the closing of South Park. Like, oh my God, they killed Kenny. Right?
You bastards.
Every episode.
And
every episode I get accused of being the man.
But then you do find out that he is immortal. And then he comes back to life every single time.
Well, maybe that answers your question. We may not be turning into galactic space beavers. Maybe we're just going maybe we're just on the hamster wheel over.
It's
and
also
over.
interesting. They say who's the person that said that you can't, like, energy is neither created or destroyed?
That's it's conservation of energy and mass. That's one of the laws of thermodynamics.
Who created that?
Lord Kelvin.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Responsible for the like the actual Kelvin, like the degrees Kelvin.
Yeah, I mean Kelvin was into a lot of stuff.
He was into a lot of those guys.
Yeah, I think it was Kelvin. Maybe it was Newton. I don't know.
Like the guy who Watt. The guy who created watts. He also created horsepower.
Well,
just because it was easier to teach factory people about the amount of energy that his things could do.
I mean, I don't even know what a horsepower is. Do you?
It's I used to know, only because I looked at I don't know why we looked this up, because I think I was trying to find out what a horsepower was, and so it's based off of watts, from whatever the watts. I don't remember.
Yeah,
what watts.
I don't even remember what a watt is.
So
a watt is power per unit or power. Yeah, force per unit time.
Right.
Yeah.
So he wanted to be able to, some of the stuff that he had made for factories, like some of the engines he made for factories, he wanted to be able to better explain to factory workers how much power it could output. So he created horsepower to do that.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because a horse, I think, can output like 15 horsepower, like an average horse.
Yeah.
Or like a human being can actually output like 1.5 to 2.5 at the higher end, or something like that.
Yeah. So power.
Just in case you were interested.
Yeah, it boggles my mind, right? Because I grew up with a scientific background, science training.
I would imagine.
And okay, right. So power, horsepower, watts, calories, joules, ergs, right? These are all like measurements of power and energy and force, and I can't keep them all straight.
But then, so going back to what I said earlier, if it can't be created or destroyed, then is energy just recycled? Because then my point is, when you die, your energy does not go away. Like the energy created from your body has to get recycled into stuff, or it has to go somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, the physicist would tell you that most things eventually decay into heat. Okay, which is, I mean, heat is
a form of energy.
Yeah, it's energy. That's right. It's a form of energy, and so, most people will say that
So
whatever
you're saying
it is,
when
dissipates.
I die,
Yeah.
I'm going to become like a fire elemental of sorts?
No, that's not what I'm saying. That's.
So then you
I
would
think-
say
I think
that
you're trying-
I can't actually die.
I think you're skipping a whole lot of dots on this one. It's just connecting.
That's the key.
Today to the very last.
That's what I
dot.
used to do in elementary
I know,
school, too.
I know, right? But sometimes, like in
Color by
elementary,
numbers, connect the dots, get out of here.
I know, right? Like, if you connect the dots perfectly, you'll have a beaver, right? But if you don't, you're going to end up with a giraffe or like a ball
Or some kind of crazy hybrid.
or an origami boulder. I don't
And what
know.
have we learned about hybrid species? They're more fun.
Okay, so here, enter Dr. Paul again. He will always tell you that hybrid species have an advantage over purebred species, and he calls it hybrid vigor. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's a pretty easy concept to wrap your head around.
That's what we should talk to him about on the podcast, because that is very interesting to me.
There is okay, so we have a lot to talk about. You throw Dr. Paul in here, and it's going to be like Alex to the Dan to the Paul, right? It's going to be so exponential. It's going to be hyperbolic, and it's like
I love it.
You with Dr. Paul in the room, you'll never ever run out of something to talk about.
Well, I like to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, he would say, "Wow, look at that turf. That's remarkable. Is that turf made from recycled asphalt, or is it made from recycled plastic bottles?" And Dan, they all come from carbon, so they're kind of the same thing. So, and he'll just go on and on and on.
That's awesome.
Endlessly provoking, endlessly informing. Yeah, he
seemed that way when I met him.
He is.
And I was excited when he would come up to because I was bartending. When he would come up to the bar to talk to me and order a drink, he always had something to say, which was cool.
Because he always has something to say.
That's fair.
Yeah. I am interested in what will happen to his energy when he dies.
Fire elemental.
Yeah, I don't know.
Rampaging. Throughout the countryside.
No, man. I think Dr. Paul's an agent of peace.
He is kind of.
Maybe he will turn into Avalokiteshvara.
Could.
Helping others ease their suffering before he attains his own enlightenment. I don't know.
Fair enough.
I don't know.
Well, to Dr. Paul.
Dan, this has been one of the craziest podcasts we've ever done. We were all over the map today.
I think we hadn't podcasted in a while, and we were just ready.
Well, it's like Boogie chillin', right? It's in him.
It's gotta come out of him.
It's got to come out, and there's a lot that had to come out today.
Well, I think we did get it out.
Now I don't know.
At least
Dan,
some of it.
I feel like I still have an axe to grind, and I don't know where I'm going to go grind it today, but I'm going to grind.
You're going to beat the piss out of this weekend. I'll tell you that.
Almost certainly. In fact, I would venture to say I've already done it today. I've already started.
I also want to wish you a happy Father's Day
Oh, thank you.
on Sunday.
And
Happy Father's Day back to you.
and happy Father's Day back to you.
Well, I appreciate that.
Okay, but you can also be the first to wish me a happy birthday.
When is your birthday?
Monday.
We'll get out of here.
No, I won't. I'm going to stay right here.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Then Mikey's is next week. Next Friday?
Attaboy, Mike.
Right? Next Friday is your birthday. Yeah.
He's a June bug.
There you go. And then a week after that, 7 days after that, is Jack's birthday, my son's birthday.
There you go. Another
Big June month.
Yeah, June's a birthday month. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Let's hear,
happy birthday. Happy Father's Day.
So what's 9 months prior to June? June is 6th, so count back 3 from
October?
October must be a hell of a month for making babies.
It must
Holy
be.
smokes. I'm just doing the math, Dan.
Right. This is just mathematical. Just mathematical here.
Right? Oh, my God. No one is ever going to watch this episode because it started out weird and it just got weirder and weirder.
I think that's exactly why people will watch.
Okay, well, if you need a dose of weird, just hit the subscribe button.
Yeah, please do. And Alex, as always, you are the man.
Nope. I'm just some guy.
But we're going straight to the top, though, Alex.
Because it is
Time to win. Thank you, guys.